This is a 1934 Packard Super 8 Coupe. We're going to give you a walk-around tour. This car is said to have originally been owned by Clark Gable, and there are many points that lead me to believe that story is correct. I'll explain them to you as we walk around and take a look. The car is in a beautiful maroon. It was delivered on November the 17th, 1933 by the Thompson Motor Company in Beverly Hills. And that's all according to the data plate that's under the hood. It's interesting, though, that this car is the only one of which we are aware that was ordered from the factory without a rumble seat. This is a stationary coupe with a trunk. And according to the Packard roster keeper, who keeps track of all of the cars that are still in existence, this is the only one of which we are aware that was ordered without the rumble seat. And in fact, the body number on the body tag under the hood catalogs this as a rumble seat coupe originally from the factory. Most likely the transformation of this into a standard coupe with a trunk was done by the West Coast distributor in Los Angeles, which was Earl Anthony. And this was something that was customarily done. They would customize cars for particularly people like Gable and other prominent stars and people in the community in Los Angeles, because if you wanted something done by Packard your own way, they would do it for you. That was part of Packard's claim to fame. They would pretty much make the car however you wanted it. You'll notice there are no rumble seat steps on this. So this was a very thorough conversion that was made, again, at the time the car was ordered. And you can look at this and see that it's not simply a matter of turning around the deck lid, because you have a curved edge on the top, you have a sharp edge on the bottom. So it's unlike some other cars where you can flip the rumble seat around and make it into a trunk, or vice versa. Then this one was actually done with quite a bit of skill. And it's unusual that this would have been done, because most people, and cars that I have seen throughout the years, people usually want to convert an old car, a coupe, into a rumble seat coupe. So they usually want to flip this around and do it the other way. In this case, this again leads me to believe certainly that this was ordered from the factory in this configuration. The trunk rack, if we lower it down and take a look, you can open up and see inside the trunk. And you can see it was a beautifully done job. It still has the golf club door on the passenger side. It makes a very spacious trunk. Now, the interesting thing about this was that in 1934, Clark Gable was married to a woman named Rhea, and she was a wealthy Texas socialite. This is before Gable married Carol Lombard. And she was really the one who's credited with grooming Gable for his movie career, and fixed his teeth and did things like that. And this car would have been purchased right after Gable would have starred in his breakout role of It Happened One Night with Claudette Colbert. So you might say this was somewhat of a little reward for himself. And if you're a motion picture buff, you may know that he was nominated for an Academy Award for that role in It Happened One Night. So again, this story, which by the way comes from the previous owner of this car, and the lineage of this car is it went from Gable, 1934, and Gable, of course, if you are a Packard aficionado or a car aficionado, you know that Gable owned many cars. There is no question that he was a car nut. He had many Packards, he had a Duesenberg, he had a lot of famous cars, of which, if you're a collector, you're aware of these cars. This car has been out of circulation, though, for over 50 years, which is why it has not really ever shown up in any collections or any books, because the car was purchased from Clark Gable by a man named Malcolm Waring. Malcolm Waring was a radio announcer in Los Angeles and also a studio announcer. I've researched Malcolm Waring. He lived in Beverly Hills and was a very successful announcer for many years. He was a friend of Clark Gable's, and in 1958, Mr. Waring sold the car to a friend of mine who owned the car from 1958 until his passing in 2011. This man's name was Don Letson, living here in Portland, Oregon. Don always kept the car. He restored it twice, actually. It was restored initially, shortly after he purchased it, early around 1960-61, the car was restored, and then again in 1996 it was restored. and the car most likely has about 1,000 miles on it since that last restoration in 1996. Don was an expert Packard mechanic and loved cars of all types, but particularly Packards, and grew up around them. So he was very happy with this car, and though many cars came and went through Don's hands through the years, this was a car he always kept, and everybody always knew it as the Gable Packard here in the Portland area. And again, Don was a very soft-spoken guy, though. He did not make a big deal out of this car, and there was really no question in anyone's mind that it was Gable's car. And again, I add to this story the fact that when Don bought the car in 1958 from Malcolm Waring, Clark Gable was still alive. Gable didn't die until 1960. So, if there were any question about this not being Clark Gable's car, it would have been very easy to determine by simply writing a letter or calling Clark Gable. But Don believed the story of Malcolm Waring's. There was no reason to doubt it. And so, again, the car, I really have no question in my mind that it was owned by Clark Gable at one time. And even without the Gable connection, you can see, in looking at this car, the quality of the car. It is absolutely beautiful and spectacular. And the restoration, as done on this car, was in fitting with the quality of it and the rarity of it. These are a very rare model. The Super 8 on a 142-inch wheelbase was really one of Packard's top cars, as you're aware, if you know anything about Packards, that next to the Packard 12, this was their top-of-the-line car. And in many ways, a lot of people prefer them to 12s simply because the straight 8 in these cars is a wonderful engine. And it's 384 cubic inches and creates about 130 horsepower, which, even with a 5,000-pound car, still makes it move right down the road. You can see, again, this is a conventional hardtop coupe. A lot of these cars were converted through the years, which makes them even rarer today, because most people chopped the tops off these and turned them into a roadster. That was not the case with this. And you can see inside, black leather interior, all the wood, which is absolutely lovely, and the wood graining and finish work on this is just beautiful. If we take a look inside, you can see the gauges. And again, the car shows just under 70,000 miles, 69,729 at the time this video is taken. And again, since restoration, it had probably about 1,000 miles put on it. Don drove his cars, but of course never abused the cars. He was a master mechanic, so this car runs absolutely beautifully, as you will hear in just a moment. I'll start it up. Everything is present, has dual wipers, mirror, of course, as you see. In the back, you do have a little package area underneath. This still has the original fabric on it, as a matter of fact. And because this once had a rumble seat, it does have the crank-down rear window, which was, of course, with a rumble seat, you'd want to be able to crank it down so you could talk to people out the back. And that was kept, of course, even after the conversion was made by the factory of this being a coupe. You can see, just looking around, it is a beautiful car and was exceptionally well done. We will start it up for you so you can hear it run. This car runs absolutely lovely. Start it up here. Another car going by me there. And we are running. We'll open up the hood and take a look at the engine. Doors close beautifully, like a Packard should. I'll lift up the hood here, and pardon me for a moment while I do this. I'm trying to do it with one hand as I shoot this video. You can see it loping along at about 500 RPM. It is completely stock. There's been no modification made to the drivetrain nor the engine. We take a look on the Firewall, you will see that data plate showing Thompson Motor Company, Beverly Hills, and the date of November of 1933 when the car was delivered in Beverly Hills. It runs absolutely silently. As you know, this car has mechanical valve lifters. You can hear it's absolutely quiet. And it's a very sensitive microphone on this camera, obviously picking me up. As you can hear, it just sounds absolutely great. We'll go around back and listen to the exhaust. Again, as I do this, you can see the detail in the restoration on this car. Absolutely stunning. Chrome hinges. This is nitrocellulose lacquer, the paint, and you can see my reflection in this paint, which is just like a mirror. The car's just been started up, so there's a little bit of moisture in the exhaust, but it's absolutely a wonderfully running car. After Don restored this car, we had a national Packard tour in Oregon for Packard's International in 2001, and he drove this car on this 800-mile week-long tour and still managed to take Best in Show on the judging at the event. I'm going to lower this side of the hood down. So, again, the car was meant to be shown, and certainly can be shown, but it's also meant to be driven. We'll lift the other side of the hood here as well so you can see it. Chrome detailing you can see on the vents under the hood as well. We'll lift this up. And as you can see, it is a very beautiful engine, as these straight eights were. Does have Beezer lubrication. Has the dual coils, northeast, with the tags on them. Fuel system has been recently gone through, so clean fuel, it runs well. As you can see, it's in exceptionally wonderfully running condition. So there you have it. 1934 Packard Super 8. It's a model 1104 Coupe. Thanks for watching.